The rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof of the outpost as Marcus Hale wiped grease from his hands. The sky of Viara 9 was never kind. Purple storms rolled endlessly, hurling bolts of plasma lightning that scorched the sands. For most humans, the planet was a temporary assignment, a mining colony to strip for resources before moving on. But Marcus wasn't like most. He'd been stationed here for nearly a decade, a mechanic who found solace in fixing broken things, whether machines or people. The colony was tense these days. Reports of raiding parties had circulated for months, whispered around mess hall tables. The Veari, indigenous warriors of the planet, were striking at supply convoys, their attacks swift, merciless, and terrifyingly precise. The corporate overseers spoke of them as savages who needed to be crushed, but Marcus wasn't convinced. He'd grown up on Earth reading about humanity's own bloody colonial history, and he suspected the Veari had reasons far deeper than bloodlust. His suspicions turned to certainty the night everything changed. Capture. A distress call had come from the northern ridge. Marcus, being one of the few who knew how to repair the battered convoy haulers, was dispatched with a small security squad. The landscape was jagged and alien, ridges of obsidian stone that shimmered beneath stormlight, carved into shapes that looked almost like temples. They found the convoy overturned, its metal hull still smoking. But the attackers hadn't fled entirely. There she was, tall, towering even compared to the armored men who surrounded her. Her skin was a pale silver, marked with streaks of iridescent blue that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. Her hair was long and black, braided with bone-like ornaments. She wore armor fashioned from hides and metallic shards, and in her hand she clutched a double-bladed spear. The Veari warrior fought like a storm given flesh. 3 guards went down before the shock rifle finally stunned her, dropping her to the sand. The squad hooped in triumph, shouting about bonuses and glory. Marcus just stood there, heart pounding, staring at the fallen figure. "Get her back to base," the captain barked. "Corporate will want to interrogate this one. A live specimen." Specimen. The word turned Marcus's stomach. The cage. She was locked in one of the outpost's reinforced cells, wrists bound by shimmering energy cuffs that pulsed whenever she strained against them. The guards treated her like an animal, shoving her, laughing, calling her it. To most of them she was just a dangerous alien. But Marcus found himself watching her with a mechanic's eyes, noticing things others didn't. The exhaustion hidden beneath her defiance, the way she flinched when the guards barked too close, the hunger in her eyes when rations were left deliberately out of reach. On the 3rd night, Marcus brought her food. Not the dried nutrient bricks the guards tossed in, but real food from the kitchen, vegetable stew he'd bartered for. He slid it carefully into her cell. The warrior's eyes narrowed in suspicion. She hissed something in her own language, the syllables sharp and musical. "I don't understand," Marcus said softly, raising his hands. "But food. Eat." For a long moment she stared at him. Then slowly she reached forward, sniffed the stew and began to eat. Her movements were wary, like a predator forced into a corner, but when she finished, she let out a low sound that could almost have been gratitude. That was the beginning. The fragile bridge. Marcus continued to bring her food, water, and sometimes even tools to fiddle with. She seemed fascinated by his repair work. When he left scraps of broken devices near the bars, she would examine them, her long fingers moving with surprising delicacy. He began teaching her simple words: food, water, friend. One evening, while the storm roared outside, she pointed at herself and said, "Caliph." Then she pointed at him. "Marcus," he said, tapping his chest. "Cuz," she repeated, her accent turning the syllables into something melodic. The next day, Marcus entered the cell despite regulations. The guards had grown careless, and he knew they wouldn't bother checking. Caliph tensed as he approached, every muscle ready to strike, but when he gently extended a hand, she hesitated. Then, to his astonishment, she touched his palm with her own. Her skin was cool, smooth, and strangely electric. From that moment, the fragile bridge of trust grew stronger. The truth revealed. Weeks passed. Marcus learned that Caliph was no mere raider. She was a commander of her people, sworn to protect sacred sites being desecrated by human mining drills. Through halting words, gestures, and drawings scratched into the floor, she explained. The Veari did not fight for conquest but for survival. The obsidian ridges were not random rock. They were ancestral monuments, imbued with history, memory, and spirit. To destroy them was to erase her people's very soul. Marcus felt shame burn in his chest. Everything corporate told them was a lie. They weren't pioneers. They were desecrators. But before he could decide what to do, events spiraled beyond his control. The betrayal. One night, alarms blared. The Veari had launched a massive assault on the outpost, their war cries echoing through the storm. The guards panicked, scrambling for weapons. In the chaos, Marcus ran to Caliph's cell. The guards had orders to execute her if an attack came, to prevent her rescue. Marcus found one soldier raising a rifle toward her. Without thinking, he slammed his wrench into the man's helmet, dropping him instantly. Caliph's eyes widened as Marcus deactivated her cuffs. For a heartbeat, they simply stared at one another, two enemies who should never have met, standing together in the heart of war. Then Caliph seized the fallen guard's weapon, spinning it with deadly grace. She looked at Marcus, tilted her head, and said the word she had learned. Friend. Together they fought their way through the chaos. The battle for the ridge. The outpost became a slaughterhouse of fire and steel. Plasma bolts lit the night, carving glowing scars across the compound. Caliph moved like lightning, cutting down soldiers with terrifying efficiency, but Marcus stayed close, using his knowledge of the outpost's layout to guide them. At last they reached the open desert, where the Veari forces surged forward. Caliph raised her weapon and gave a cry that split the storm. Her warriors answered, rallying to her side. For a moment, Marcus thought they might simply kill him too, another human invader. But Caliph raised her hand, stopping them. She spoke rapid, commanding words, gesturing at Marcus. The warriors lowered their blades. Marcus realized she was protecting him. Aftermath. When dawn broke, the outpost was nothing but smoldering ruins. The corporate overseers fled the planet, unwilling to invest further in such hostile territory. The surviving colonists scattered, some off-world, others choosing to live humbly under Veari watch. Marcus stayed. It wasn't easy. At first, Caliph's people viewed him with suspicion, a human who had trespassed on sacred ground. But word spread of how he had freed their commander, how he had fought not against them but alongside her. Slowly, grudgingly, they accepted his presence.